Tarrant County Master Gardener Association has partnered with the Tarrant Regional Water District to encourage water conservation. TRWD maintains 4 area lakes and pipelines needed to provide surface water to local water treatment plants so they can clean that water to meet drinking standards for our communities. There are currently 2.3 million people living in Tarrant County, and this is expected to double over the next 50 years. At SaveTarrantWater.com, you can sign up for free weekly watering advice custom to your location. There's also an event calendar where you can find information about future classes and workshops. So be sure and check out SaveTarrantWater.com to sign up for their free services.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining our class today. My name is Jenny Spencer. I'm a Tarrant County Master Gardener and the lead gardener for our bird sanctuary at our demonstration garden located at 1801 Circle Drive in Fort Worth. I'll be teaching you ways to make your lawn and garden into a bird sanctuary. Here's a picture of our bird sanctuary at the demonstration garden, which was created by one of our recent intern groups. They worked hard to create a space friendly for birds to thrive, and I was asked almost a year ago to take over as the lead to help keep it up. I wasn't sure at the time what all would be growing, but I've enjoyed seeing it flourish, but it's also allowed me to keep in mind what changes I want to make for the next growing season. As you can see, many of our native grasses have migrated into this garden since it resides right next to our native grasses garden. I'll have to take a little more control over that next year as I wasn't prepared for how much they would take over. Topics I'll be going over in class today will include some of the common birds that we see here in North Texas, native plants to attract birds to your garden, including hummingbirds, things you can include in your garden to make it bird friendly, and how to get your garden certified as a natural habitat. Starting with common birds in North Texas, I wanted to cover the types of birds we frequently see, as learning about each species will help you determine how to draw in or ward off specific birds into your gardens. Providing certain plants, specific nuts and grains in your feeders, shelter that is friendly for their preferred nesting habitats can all determine if these birds will find your garden fit for their needs. I will only cover some of the main birds we see, otherwise we would be here for a couple of hours. Being mindful of anyone using headphones right now, I will also be playing the sounds each bird makes to help you further identify what you have visiting your yard, so make sure your volume is at a tolerable level. I will start with cardinals since that's one of our favorites. You will find them at your feeders more often during the low light parts of the day. The theory is due to the male's bright colors, they may appear more inconspicuous in low light conditions, providing them some security for natural predators. They love seeds. Fill your feeders with sunflower seeds, cracked corn, and shelled peanuts, and you will draw them in. Even during courtship, affection is expressed by the males by feeding the female seeds. They prefer thick underbrush for nesting, so you can keep that in mind. And here is the sound that they make. Blue jays are a beautiful bird we love to see along with cardinals. They are known for their intelligence and complex social systems with tight family bonds. Their fondness for acorns is credited with helping spread oak trees. They prefer tray feeders over the hanging feeders. They love peanuts and sunflower seeds. If you have oak trees, you probably get to enjoy these birds even more. They are sporadic with their migrating patterns. Some years they will migrate south and some years they won't. No one has worked out why they migrate when they do. They will mimic the calls of hawks to warn other blue jays that a hawk is nearby. And they prefer dense, low shrubs for their habitat and nesting. Both males and females take care of their young. And here is what they sound like. The Columbine family includes pigeons and doves. We see a lot of mourning doves and white-winged doves in our area, so I'll cover those. Their breeding season is long, from April to September, laying 2 eggs per clutch, which is a nest of eggs. They raise between 2 to 5 clutches per year. Both the male and female take part in incubating the eggs, and they both provide what is called crop milk, which is secreted and regurgitated from the esophagus to young birds. Mourning doves usually do not live longer than a year due to predators, diseases, accidents, hunting, and weather extremes. Doves love weed seeds such as pigweed, foxtails, wild sunflowers, and ragweed. They also love grains including corn, sorghum, and millet, but they'll also eat insects as a side dish. As you probably know, doves will nest anywhere. They seem to be unbothered nesting around humans. They will nest in gutters, eaves, abandoned equipment, even on the ground. If you provide dense foliage, it'll help deter them from those unwanted areas. And here is what they sound like. The house finch has some really interesting history. Their origins came from Hawaii, and they eventually came over to San Francisco in the 1800s. In 1940, some cage bird dealers brought a few dozen of them to Long Island. Thinking the feds were after them, they released all of them, and they quickly spread their population and migrated all over the United States, where they permanently reside. The females will mate with the reddest males they can find and will exclusively feed their young plant food, which is rare in the bird world. They nest in all sorts of cavities such as rock ledges, hanging planters, ivy, sometimes lamps, cactus, and even abandoned nests from other birds. And here's what they sound like. The northern mockingbird is hard to miss. I'm sure we've all experienced their endless singing at one point or another. They will string 10 to 15 different bird songs, sometimes even through the night. A male mockingbird will learn around 200 songs through its life. The females are quieter and only sing when the male is away from their territory or to establish a winter territory. Speaking of, they are territorial birds and like to harass anything that comes into their spaces. They tend to not visit feeders, but if you want to encourage them into your yards, they love fruiting trees and bushes, including mulberries, hawthorns, and blackberry brambles. They do prefer open areas and sparse vegetation for their habitats, and they like to nest in shrubs and trees. And here are the various sounds that they make. The American robin is a common sight to see in our area, especially at the end of winter. You may see them tugging earthworms out of the ground and singing a cheerful song. They love bird feeders and do make use of nest structures. Since they do a lot of their foraging on the ground, they are more vulnerable to pesticides and can be an indicator of chemical pollution. Keep this in mind when you want to treat your lawns. They nest in trees and shrubs, but also can be found nesting on ledges of houses, barns, and bridges. And here is the sound they make. The red-throated hummingbird is a highly desired sight to see and tends to be the first bird people want to draw into their yards. Feeders and a tubular flower garden are a great way to attract these birds. The summer season is the best time to draw them in, as by early fall they're bound for Central America. They are able to cross the Gulf of Mexico in one single flight. I'll go ahead and cover some important feeder information here. Food coloring is unnecessary as the feeders themselves will have enough color to attract them. Table sugar is best, mixing 1/4 cup of sugar per cup of water. It's crucial to change the water frequently before it becomes cloudy and discolored, especially during hot weather. Sugar water ferments rapidly, producing toxic alcohol. It's also important to keep the feeders themselves clean, as it can be a breeding ground for harmful bacteria. Hummingbirds can beat their wings about 53 times per second. Their short legs prevent them from walking or hopping. They have impressive color vision and see into the ultraviolet spectrum, which we are unable to do. They prefer red and orange flowers. They nest on branches, but they are accustomed to human habitation and have been known to nest on loops of chain, wire, and extension cords. This species is North America's only breeding hummingbird. Males and females only stay together long enough for courtship and mating, which is a matter of just days to weeks. They don't make a lot of sound, but their little wings sound like drones. The scissor-tailed flycatcher is a fascinating bird to me. They're agile in the air, spreading their long tails wide to make abrupt turns and stalls. They even use their tails to expertly catch insects on their wing. They are fun to watch in the air while they prey on insects. They will sit on utility lines, treetops, and fences to watch for insects or be on the ready to defend their territory. They prefer open habitats and scattered trees. They tolerate human presence well and frequently breed in towns. They do gather in late summer, early fall in flocks to migrate to Mexico or Central America. They occasionally supplement their insect diet by visiting berry bushes such as mulberry or hackberry. They like to use human products in their nest, such as string, cloth, paper, or carpet fuzz. In fact, a study was done in an urban area here in Texas that found up to 30% of their nests were of artificial materials. And here's the sound they make. The red-winged blackbird is hard to miss. Their unique markings always make this bird a beautiful sight to see. They seem to know it, too. The male birds will do everything they can to get noticed, sitting high on perches and belting out their songs all day long, and to protect their territory. Females tend to stay a little more reclusive on the ground, looking for food and weaving together their remarkable nests. You will find more of these birds in fresh and saltwater marshes, along water hazards on golf courses, and wet roadsides. This is where they will also nest. In the winter, you will find them in crop fields, feedlots, and pastures. They eat both seeds and insects, and they love blackberries, corn, and rice. Here is the sound that they make. Have you had the pleasure of seeing a cedar waxwing? They are a migratory bird that can be seen year-round in the upper half of the continental United States, spends the summer months in Canada, and through winter they migrate down to the southern half of the United States and Mexico, including the entire state of Texas. The pairs remain monogamous, and they will go the extra mile to be romantic, often sitting together and passing flower petals back and forth. They will also share food and rub bills together. Both sexes tend to the eggs and the young once they are born. They are attracted to bird feeders, and they love raisins and other berries. They are an unusually sociable bird with humans, so they will allow you to take that quick picture. And here's what they sound like. Crows are in the corvid family, along with ravens and magpies, and they can be seen everywhere in Texas. They're probably my favorite bird because of their intelligence and how family-oriented they are. In fact, their intelligence is considered on par with chimpanzees. They will eat anything, from crops to other birds' eggs, and they will get crafty to steal food from other birds and animals. They have been seen using creative methods to distract river otters, to steal fish, and dropping nuts on hard surfaces to open them. They will hold funerals of sorts for their dead and form close family units of up to 5 generations. The young birds will grow and give their parents a hand with chick rearing, helping with building nests, keeping the nest clean, and feed the mother while she's sitting on the nest. If you desire to bring crows into your space, they will learn that you are friendly and they are characters to observe. I'm sure we all know what crows sound like, but if you'd like to hear, this is what they sound like. Native plants have formed symbolic relationships with native wildlife over thousands of years and therefore offer the most sustainable habitat. A plant is considered native if it has occurred naturally in a particular region, ecosystem, or habitat without human introduction. Native plants help the environment the most when planted in places that match their growing requirements. They will thrive in the soils, moisture, and weather of your region. That means less supplemental watering, which can be wasteful, and pest problems that require toxic chemicals. Native plants also assist in managing rainwater runoff and maintain healthy soil as their root systems are deep and keep the soil from being compacted. It starts by planting native plants that offer natural bird food such as seeds, berries, nuts, and nectar, as well as the insects birds feed their babies. You can add some supplemental feeders, a bird bath, and nesting boxes, and birds from colorful songbirds to hummingbirds will be ready to move in. Many bird species are declining, and planting for birds can help bolster their populations. Did you know 96% of songbirds depend on caterpillars as a food source to survive? For instance, a pair of Carolina chickadees require between 6,000 and 9,000 caterpillars to successfully raise just one brood of young. It's important to plant native trees and plants to support birds and wildlife. A native oak tree can support the caterpillars of over 500 species of butterflies and moths. This is also why it's important to avoid using insecticides. So, to sum it up, the key things that make birds happy with the native plant: if it's a good host for larvae, if it's nectar producing, berry producing, nut producing, and seed producing. Those are the key things that you want to look for with the plant. I will go through a few native plants to give you some ideas on what you can put in your gardens. Keep in mind that many plants that aren't exactly a food source can provide shelter they need from predators or extreme weather. The beautyberry bush can not only provide food for birds, but it displays an eye-catching pop of color for your garden. They are deciduous, which means that they will lose their leaves during the winter, but during spring they will have pretty lavender flowers, and by fall the bright purple berries will appear. Sunflowers are all around a great addition to your garden. So many of the birds I covered today love sunflower seeds, and they are of course really popular with the pollinators. Two more flowers that are a favorite amongst master gardeners, and they are also native to Texas. The coneflower, or also known as eugenesia, is a perennial, and birds love the seeds, and they also attract a lot of butterflies. The black-eyed Susans, same thing, they're perennials. The birds love the seeds, and it attracts the pollinators that we all need in our gardens. The fall aster plant, which is one of my personal favorites, is another perennial where the birds love the seeds that they produce. They start to bloom in the fall when all your other flowers start to fade away. The elderberry plant produces white flowers that are like a superfood for birds. The flower heads contain a nectar that provide vitamins A, B, and more vitamin C than oranges. The dark purple berries will start to ripen mid to late summer through September, and they bring a variety of birds to your yard, including the waxwings and mockingbirds. You can also use it for your own personal jellies, jams, teas, and pies. Unlike most hollies, the possum haw holly is a deciduous plant, losing its leaves during the winter, but will grow bright red berries in November. The cedar waxwing birds love these berries, so they might not last long on the trees. The female trees only produce the berries, so either buy one with berries already on it, or ask for the cultivar Warren's Red. Keep in mind, they grow up to 12 to 14 feet tall and 8 to 10 feet wide, so they will need space. The juniper shrub will provide the nutrients birds need to get through the winter, as well as provide shelter from the cold. Not only do the birds love the berries, but they also love the flowers junipers produce in the spring. The dogwood tree is a beautiful addition to your garden. It's a deciduous flowering tree that provides food for many animals, and the red fruit develops in the fall. The Yupon holly is an evergreen that produces winter berries on the female plants. It's a tough plant, and it's popular in the nursery industry in Texas. Birds such as mockingbirds, cedar waxwings, and robins love to eat these berries. The agarita plant is an evergreen holly-like shrub that's easy to grow here in Texas. In late winter, they will have bright yellow flowers, and from May to July, the red berries will come out, and the birds love those. This plant does not lose its leaves during the wintertime, so you'll get to enjoy the leaves through the winter. The Virginia creeper is deciduous, so it'll lose its leaves, but during the fall, it'll have some really beautiful colors, reds and oranges. It's really easy to care for. The leaves will be green during the spring and summer, and then the berries will come out late fall and winter. But just keep in mind, it is a vine, so it will take over, and once it becomes attached to a building, it'll be difficult to remove and might even remove some paint and leave marks behind. I'll go ahead and cover just a few of the flowers that I know work really well with drawing in hummingbirds. Zinnias is one, salvias. There's all sorts of salvia plants, and they are one of my favorites. They're very hardy. They are native and they grow well in Texas. Petunias, the butterfly bush, trumpet creepers, and the columbine plant. Columbine is another favorite amongst master gardeners, and they are a native and they do really well with growing in our region. Now we're going to cover some of the things that you can put in your backyard that will help draw birds to your gardens. First, we'll cover bird feeders. The ideal bird feeder is sturdy enough to withstand winter weather, and squirrels tight enough to keep seeds dry, and they're easy to assemble, and most important of all, easy to keep clean. To attract the greatest variety of birds to your yard, provide several different feeder types offering a variety of foods. You'll find that some species are more likely to use one kind of feeder over another. And here's a rundown of the main types. We have the tray or platform feeders, hopper or house feeders, the window feeders, a tube feeder, the Niger feeders, which kind of looks like a tube feeder, but the holes are a lot smaller, so you can put very tiny seeds in there, which will draw certain birds, and the suet feeders. I stumbled upon this when I was looking up some different feeder types. It's a really creative way to hang a mammoth sunflower so that birds can sit on it and pick out some of the seeds. There are so many different birdhouses on the market that you can choose from or make yourself at home. I wanted to point out just a couple of different features that you might want to consider. As you can see on the left, there is a middle tube that goes around the pole for the birdhouse that will help prevent snakes and squirrels from climbing into the birdhouse. Another feature that I think would be beneficial is to have some sort of way to be able to open the birdhouse. As you can see on the bottom right, it looks like there is a way to open that birdhouse so you can clean it out. I found a few helpful tips online about bird baths. One of the things is that birds naturally just want to be closer to the ground, since that's how most water sources are. So if you have a bird bath that's on a pedestal, then I would take the pedestal and use it for holding up something decorative and then putting the bath on the ground. You want to keep the water shallow, as birds do not like to take a bath in deep water. You want to pick a good spot for viewing, that way you can watch nearby. If you put stones in the bath, then that will help provide the birds with better footing and help them feel a little more secure. You want to put it close, but not too close to covering, so near a tree. That way, if there is danger, then the bird can quickly get to somewhere safe. You do want to keep it somewhere shady, that way the water does not get hot. They want to cool off when they take a bath. Of course, you want to always keep the water clean. There's all sorts of things that can get into the water that will create bacteria, and you want to always make sure that it is nice and clean for them. Birds also love moving water, so keep that in mind. You can always run an irrigation line and create a little fountain for the birds, and that will draw them in. And just a side note, if you want to draw birds into your yard, unfortunately cats and dogs are not going to help matters. For instance, this is my cat Toby jumping in the air trying to catch a dragonfly. He has yet to catch a bird, but he definitely tries. If you want to certify your garden as a natural habitat, there's a few options out there, but the National Wildlife Federation is a great place to start. They just require a $20 fee to receive your sign for your garden, and then also meet the following requirements of providing native plants to provide food, a source of water, cover so that the birds and other wildlife can have shelter, a place to raise their young, so you can provide, just make sure you have trees or a bird house, something of that sort, and then use sustainable practices. You will receive a nice sign for your yard that your garden is certified, and you can show it off to your friends. The website is www.nwf.org, and you can follow the links to get the certification taken care of. And that is the end of our presentation today. Thank you so much for joining us. I do hope that you were inspired and learned something new. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions at all. My email is listed as jennyspencer81@me.com. Thank you.